join me in welcoming Sara. Good morning. Nope, not loud enough. Good morning. Good morning. I was going to use the walk and talk, but I think I'm going to stay put. We're all doing okay? Everyone hear me okay? No. No, you can't hear me okay. How did you do it, Christy? Oh, I had a lapel mic. That one? If I do this? Yes. All right, let's see if I can keep my girls in while I do this. Okay. How is that? Am I going to have to do this? It's kind of crinkly. Am I okay? This is how we're going to roll today, yeah? Yeah. Good morning. I am so incredibly honored to be here. I have been at this conference before and know that magic happens in this room. So I am incredibly privileged and honored that I was asked to be here this morning. And I'm going to do my best to kick off a really powerful day. I often, even last night, recently, you heard I have a 14-year-old and 11-year-old. My new phrase for them is read the room. Last night, I'm getting ready to start slowing down, getting a good night's sleep, go through my slides, and I go into my bedroom to do this, and the whole family is in there on their phones and dinking around. And I was like, read the room, y'all. Like, I need this space right now for mommy to get centered for tomorrow. They kicked me out to my back outside deck, which ended up being quiet and lovely anyways. But anyways, I've been saying that more and more to my children. And so I thought I'd start the day by reading this room as I kick over water into an electrical socket. We got this. So if you've seen this feelings wheel before, there's actually a QR code up there. I feel like every successful keynote or breakout at this point has some sort of QR code that you can all, this is what I want to see. And I'm going to take a picture at some point of all of you doing this. But if you want to have your own, close-up version of this feelings wheel, feel free to do that. What I just, recognize this morning is that we're all coming in from different places of our mind, our emotions, our energy, our sacred time energy and emotion. And so, just recognize this morning, kind of where you're at on this wheel. Some of you are like over the moon happy, and you're here for the awesome bagels and the company and the coffee, and nothing I can say right now will bring you down. No, I love that, right? But I get the fact that the world is heavy. We feel extremely overwhelmed. There's a lot of anxiety. So some of you may be coming in, presenting this morning with a little irritation, a little bit of overwhelming feeling, a little bit of stuckness, hopelessness. Like, I get that and I honor that. And so I'm taking it upon myself to try and lift you a little bit today. And we'll check in at the end with our color wheel again. But just recognize where you're coming in this morning. And for me, again, it's maybe reading the room. How many of you are like just so blissed out right now that I'm so jealous of you? Is it the bagels? Is it the Baileys in your coffee? Like, what is it? I'm happy for you that you're happy. And like I said, there are days when I feel so overwhelmed. It's so hard to find that happiness and the optimism. And so really what I'm giving you today is my 20 years of work's worth of reflection and lessons learned that I hope you can carry with you. There was a keynote that I went to when I was in high school. Here, I'm going to date myself. But I remember going to see a motivational speaker, and that motivational speaker had mentioned at the time, I don't know what his name is, I don't know where it was, I don't know any other details. But I know that this individual set something off in me in a great way, and that he said, everyone, there's only one May 18th, 1995. Anybody a 95er? Yeah! That's when I'm going old. Okay. So this is 1995, and he just said that. He's like, there's one May 18th, 1995. And that really stuck with me. We only get one May 18th, 1995. And it stuck with me all of these years that if I only get this one day, how am I going to choose to spend it and remember it? And so today is June 18th, 2024. And again, I'm incredibly honored to be here. This is a once-in-a-lifetime to me opportunity. I don't know if I'll be asked to do this again. But I do want to recognize Anya Williams, who is hiding in the, which camouflage herself. She's video recording this for me because, thank you, Anya. This is an incredible gift to me, and I want to make sure to capture this moment. So I'm going to start a little bit and talk about our organization and my work before I get into the key components of this talk, which is humility, health, and hope. Now, I recognize there are people that are be giving a breakout session in a couple hours, and I looked at all of the offerings today, and there are quite a few of you in your titles for your breakouts that use the word empower. Anybody in here right now that has the word empower? Or in the last 48 hours, who has not heard the word empower in the work that we're involved in? So it's the word we use all the time, right? And there's really incredible weight to it. It's something that we use, especially in the nonprofit advocacy world. Empower has been really embraced. But recently someone came up and kind of hit me on the shoulder and said, Sara, it's okay to reimagine and think through words that we're using this day and age. And they reminded me that in one sense, using the word empower assumes that someone doesn't inherently already have power, that they have to be given power to be empowered. And so it made me take a step back and kind of reflect on that and say, maybe there's another word. Maybe there's another way to talk about this, because often, I think it was Alice Walker that was quoted saying, the greatest way people give up power is realizing they don't have any. And we all have so much to give and so much to share in terms of our lived experience and our visions for the world. And so basically, a couple years ago when I was in a spring sickness, not COVID, but I was feverish and I couldn't sleep, and I was like, what's the word? What's the word that I can use to replace empower? And embolden came to mind. And I think this fits so much better for me and my vision for the work that I'm doing, in that maybe you inherently already have power, but maybe you don't inherently have the courage or the confidence or the connections, right, to apply that power. And so hence we became Embolden Wisconsin after 20 years of being the Wisconsin Alliance for Women's Health on January 1st of this year. And this is what we're doing day in and day out, is really working to embolden people to be advocates for positive change. Embolden Wisconsin is new. It's been a 2-year journey of really doing authentic reflection on our organization's work. But we're here to help cultivate the courage, curiosity, community, and connection that will strengthen that inherent power we all have. Now, Embolden Wisconsin is really focused on working upstream. And I'm going to go through that a lot in my talk today. This quote by Desmond Tutu talks about how we need to stop just throwing, I'm totally paraphrasing, you can see the quote up there, but we need to stop just assuming we can throw in life jackets downriver when we see people come floating by drowning, right? He thinks that what if we go upstream and find out, why are these people falling in the water to begin with? What if we could prevent them falling in and not just having to Band-Aid and be ready with a life jacket further downriver? And so I'm so proud of the pivot the Alliance for Women's Health made into Embolden Wisconsin, is that more than ever we're really focused upstream and really building that kind of community power and emboldening community. Our two main priorities at Embolden Wisconsin are health equity, buzzword that I think a lot of you are familiar with. Not a buzzword, I think it's a key component, again, in our work as a society. But then some of you might not have heard the term civic health. Anybody here familiar with civic health, the concept? Yeah, this is a little newer. Civic health, watch this space, because I really feel like civic health is going to be more and more in our vernacular and the work that we're doing in trying to improve health outcomes and to embolden individuals. Civic health, you hear a lot about social determinants of health. But another really core component of this is political determinants of health. And civic health is really about belonging, and it's about engaging, and it's about having policy and systems happen with you instead of to you. So you being here today is an exercise in civic health. And I have lots more information on that on our website, and I could probably come back and do a breakout next year, but just watch that space for civic health. Is this microphone working okay? Okay. Organizations you may have heard of that are affiliated with us are PATCH, Providers and Teens Communicating for Health, and Amy Olenichek, our director of PATCH, is here sitting up front cheering us on and keeping me on time. ECHO is Engaging Communities to Change Health Outcomes. These are two homegrown projects that our organization has created that centers the voice of those often missing from conversations around policy and systems. So our PATCH program centers the voice of adolescents, puts them in the driver's seats, and helps them to advocate for better healthcare systems that really infuse confidentiality and trust and rights and responsibilities in healthcare. And then our ECHO program is a newer program, but that really centers the voice of women of color who have been, again, chronically missing from the conversations dealing with different disparities, different areas like maternal child health and others. But our organization really took a step back the last couple of years and said, what can we do to do more to embolden and to lift up these really great community-driven initiatives? And so we've now come into the space of fiscal sponsorship. If any of you know what fiscal sponsorship is, basically it is a pain to go and get your own 501c3 status and start your own nonprofit, and there's a lot of administrative requirements that come with that. The new territory right now is for a group like ours to offer and to lend our nonprofit status to others who are looking to kind of try out a concept. And so often I think what community-driven change looks like gets bogged down by all the administrative requirements from funding or nonprofit status. So we want to be that administrative backbone for more of these innovative health equity and civic health programs. And so if any of you know Roots for Change, which is a group of doulas here in Madison, they're working to improve maternal child health in the Latinx community here. And then AMIWI is a group in Milwaukee doing some great work around Rwanda refugees. And then Building Families Alliance is a coalition we're helping to house that's fighting for infertility treatment coverage here in Wisconsin, which is, again, all the buzz these days. So we're working here. So these are all ways that you can continue to connect with us. Okay, I'm going to really kick in now to the presentation and my 3 areas that I really want you all to carry with you when you leave here today. I think I was trying to order these, and of course I had to find all H words. But humility is where I wanted to start today. I was asked to come here, and this is about us all trying to strengthen our leadership skills, right? And to empower each other and embolden each other and network with each other. And again, I'm here, don't have a PhD in this, have yet to go back to get my master's, but this is 20 years worth of experience, and I think one of the greatest lessons I've learned is humility. To say we don't know what we don't know. So often, people, when I've given advice on how to do a media interview, or if someone is going to meet with a legislator, and everyone's like, but I need to be an expert. I need to know everything there is to know. I need to have all the data and all the answers. And one of the most powerful things I tell them they can say is, I don't know. But I'm going to look into that and I will get back to you. And our organization, we really, after 20 years of doing work, direct policy work in the state capitol, fighting for women's health issues, it was really important for us to take a step back and say, okay, who are we? What have we done? Where are our opportunities? Where are our threats? And the first thing that I'll say is that we had to look at ourselves through the lens of a white-led organization. I needed to have some humbleness and humility to say, what is our role as a white-led organization to do this work in healthcare disparities and health equity and civic health? And that's where we shifted and said, maybe we don't need to be the ones convening different community. Maybe we need to be the ones that do the backbone work for those individuals and get out of the way so that that community-driven work can really help. Another example is that I've been involved with different professors and physicians here on campus, and a few years back, all the rage was about IUDs and about long-acting reversible contraception. I remember sitting in a room with a lot of these doctors and a lot of these academics looking at the data around the effectiveness of an IUD or an implant. But we had to sit there in humility and say, we don't know what this looks like from the community outside the doors of the clinic. We don't have voices in this room right now to recognize the history of reproductive oppression and the way there has been coercion in reproductive health care for a long time. So these are examples of humility, taking a step back and be like, am I the one to be doing this work? Who else is better to speak to this issue? And if I don't know, it's okay to say, I don't know. Basically, I feel like so much like when I came in, I never got my master's to be an executive director. I didn't know I could get to this point. I didn't know at 27 years old that here I would still be here 20 years later, here with you all today. But I think I came in young and thinking, I was told this is the way you do things. This is the way you do advocacy. This is the way you do a press conference. This is the way you do giving testimony at the Capitol. And we have that, like that status quo, right? Like we often will feel like just put your head down, continue and do what you do. But I think humility is one of those greatest gifts to us, and that we can take a step back and be like, is that the only direction to get there? Is that the only way to do that work? And I love this quote, that people would rather follow a leader who is real than a leader who is always right. Don't try to be perfect, leader. Just work on being an authentic one. So that's my first nugget for you this morning. And I will say, I know, is Danielle in the room? Danielle, you're giving a pivot talk. This is for you. And my obsession with friends. I think it's such a powerful word. And I really think we should really embrace that. Yes, I'm a Friends fan. And yes, anyone knows the Ross moment. But I think it's so powerful for us to embrace the pivot, and everyone go to Danielle's session later and learn more about that. But that's what Embolden Wisconsin is. It's a pivot from the Wisconsin Alliance for Women's Health, and it's a reimagination of what we can do as who we are as a white-led organization, and what we can do to go upstream and really, again, stop people from falling in the river to begin with. Now, the next area I want to discuss with you all today is health. I think this one's probably a no-brainer. Anywhere you are these days, I think we want to talk about our well-being, our resiliency. And it's not just the absence of disease and injury, right? Like, this is about our balance. I remember when people would ask me, what kind of policy issues do you work on, Sara, for women's health? And I said, anything that makes or breaks us. This is not just about cancer screenings. This is not just about economic security. This is about a full range of issues, from affordable child care to paid sick days to not shackling pregnant people in prisons to expanding Medicaid or meeting the Affordable Care Act. Like, there are so many areas that can make or break us during the day, right? You can't just silo off our health and well-being. So when I talk about health today, I do want to talk about it from a holistic standpoint. I want to talk about it from a place of strength and a place of vitality. Now, I think one of the hardest things, and maybe you all don't feel this the same way I do, but in my work being a women's health policy advocate and an advocacy doula, this could not be more true. You do not eat the fruit the day you plant the seeds. I'm really excited to be starting eating some strawberries. But somebody planted those strawberries, right, a while back. It is so absolutely imperative that we recognize that there's a long game here. That things are going to take a while to see some sort of significant community-driven change and setting the new norms after the pandemic. This, for the longest time, was my to-do list. Amy knows, and I still have them. I have not leaned into electronic note-taking. I collect notebooks, and I fill them up, and I have about 50 in my office from when I first started this organization. And ironically, this same list kept coming up over and over and over again over the years. No problem, Sarah. Let's solve climate change, restore reproductive rights, pass paid medical leave, stop voter suppression, achieve world peace, right? No problem. Are we all feeling this? Like there are really big tasks and really big challenges we are being asked to face, right? And when you're in the trenches and you're a women's health policy advocate working in the state capitol, it's hard not to keep your eye on these prizes, right? But how do you think I felt every single day having this checklist in front of me, not being able to check off that box? That can be incredibly frustrating and overwhelming and saddening when you're like, how do I even begin? What can I even do to make a dent with this? And so I think it's so important that we recognize the long game, that I think we recognize that self-care, if anybody here knows the rest is resistance or the NAP ministry, I highly recommend checking out the author Tricia Hersey, but talking about how we have to stop talking about this as selfishness, but this is a necessity for us to be taking care of ourselves. And I think for me, especially during the pandemic, I had to rewire myself and reimagine what success looked like on any given day. So Michelle Obama, in her book, The Light We Carry, talks about how she took up knitting during the pandemic because it was something that she could, I forget the words, some of you in here are gonna like totally bash me for not knowing my knitting terms, but like what tie on and tie off, what is it called? Wax on, wax off? Cast? Yep, what you said. So Michelle Obama talks about how that was something she had to do during that time. Because it was something that she could sit down, she could feel, she could see, and she could complete and know that something was possible of getting done. Now, in some cases for me during the pandemic, I would wake up in the morning, and for me, my to-do list was put on a bra with clasps. Maybe not today I'm passing paid family medical leave, but I'm gonna put on a bra with clasps, and I'm gonna sit in front of my Zoom computer and wear that proudly. A lot of days it was, oh, let's put toothbrushing on my list of success today, right? In some cases, you heard it in the introduction, like I love Lego sets. I love that I can sit down with it and I can work on it and I can display it proudly in my office. Amy knows I'm a 47-year-old woman with Lego collections all over my office. But it's something that reminds me that something can be accomplished. I love crossword puzzles for that reason. I love jigsaw puzzles for that reason. I don't know what that looks like for you. But one of my favorite things to do when the weather is being cooperative, right, is cutting the grass. And I love making that first cut with my battery-operated lawnmower. And I'm quiet and I'm listening to my podcast or whatever, and I'm cutting, and I'm like, oh, look at, I just did that. And then when I get done with the whole yard, I'm like, oh, I feel good. I've, got my heart rate up a little bit, and I can see I did something. I have to tell you, though, anybody who knows and works for Canva, who I put these slides together with, this was the only picture of a woman with a lawnmower. Why are we stereotypical taking selfies while we do grass cutting? So you get the idea, but somebody needs to tell Canva that more of us cut grass than just all the men they had in the clip art. Some people like to cook. Some people, for them, success is maybe having a weekend where you're like, I am finishing Bridgerton right now. And there are some days where I was like, oh, I feel so bogged down. I have no idea. I know how much the world is calling for us to do something, but I don't even know where to begin. I have such limited sacred time, energy, and emotion. What can I do? And there are just days where I'm at Goodwill, and I'm like, round up. It's 30 cents, but I'm like, round up, let me contribute that 30 cents to you. And there are some days where, I actually have to sit down and say, I really need to heed the call of the Red Cross and go donate platelets. Like, that is something I can do where I can go and sit and know that I made a contribution in light of everything else that's the long game, right? Find something that you can do. Borrow the bra thing, whatever you need to do. But today even, make a list for yourself. What is the one thing that success looks like today? Because if we continue to really put those huge things on our to-do list, that's really defeating and really hard to wake up every day knowing you can't check that box. But make your own to-do list and your success list. The small steps are really important. I love this image. We just have to remind ourselves that we are not going to tackle it all, and that we will get much further again if we give ourselves the space and grace to take things incrementally. I love this quote: "We must not, in trying to think about how we can make a big difference, but ignore the daily differences we can make, which will over time add up to big differences in the world." Lieutenant Governor Barbara Lawton years ago had made comments about snow and snowflakes, that, one snowflake is one, but together we can stop traffic, right? So we have to look at incrementally not only how we individually can exercise and cultivate that experience of engagement and satisfaction and success, but know that we're not alone in doing that. I am not someone that is going to sing for you this morning. I'm sure, is there someone in here that has a birthday today? Or is someone really shy about it? All right, then we won't sing happy birthday for the example. But anybody hear of the parable of the choir? So the parable of the choir basically says that you can hold a beautiful long note for a long time when you have a group of people singing together. And the beauty of it is that one person in the choir, if they need to take a step back, they need to grab the breath, they need to take a rest, they can step back and the note goes on. I think during the pandemic, a lot of us quit choirs. We often were forced to come back and sit in our isolation. And I think this is such a beautiful example of how we're starting to convene again. And we're maybe not singing here today, but in a sense, we're joining a choir. We're joining a community of resilience, a community of dedication, a community of compassion, and that we remind ourselves that it's not on us. Because when I woke up some of those days and was like, if not me, then who? If not now, then when? And that was so overwhelming every single day to wake up like that. And to know the challenges we face and the real unattainable environment that we're trying to do this work in. And so those are the two really important things around health, is that to really, again, recognize something that gives you joy, that reminds you that you can succeed in something. And don't ever forget that there are others out there who are ready to sing with you and to be there so you can take a break. One of my most famous books that changed my professional life was Emergent Strategies, Adrienne Marie Brown. That book saved me many, many times, but it talks about how we should look to nature and examples of networks and resilience. So mushrooms, dandelions, geese. Okay, aside from the fact that the geese leave, I used to work in a landscaping company, and they make a mess. Aside from that, I'm looking at geese differently these days. I'm celebrating geese because I see that knowing that what they do when they migrate or when they're traveling is that they take turns leading. And if one's tired or one's injured, it stays back and one stays with it and they catch up later. So my point being that, yes, you're ready to join the choir, you're ready to practice small levels of success, small steps, but at the same time, give yourself permission to take a step back and take that breath that you need and know that you have a community of individuals who are going to be there to pick it up, so it's not you 24/7 putting that pressure on yourself. The last area I want to talk about today is hope, which seems like an interesting thing to end on, because sometimes that seems like the hardest thing to do. The hardest thing to do, right, is to hold out hope and optimism and to have belief that things will get better and not quite understanding where you are in that process. But I think it's so absolutely important that we recognize that if we can't even imagine it, we can't do it. There's so much resignation in this world. You know, we're always going to have these storms now. We're always going to have the impact of climate. We're never going to have affordable childcare. Will I ever be able to afford a house in this market? Will I ever get equal pay for equal work? Will I ever get affordable health care? Will there be enough mental health providers, right? Like, there are so many daunting things. And I think one of the first things we need to do is challenge ourselves to say it doesn't have to be the way it is. All throughout history, someone at some point radically reimagined something that got us to the moon or that got us these little devices that we can't let go of in our pockets, right? Somebody at some point had to radically imagine how we could do things differently. And I think it's so important that we embrace radical imagination. Radical imagination is not only, again, like really putting forth that vision, not just the frustration and the overwhelmingness that we feel in the realities of it all, but if we can't see past that, if we can't see and put ourselves in developing that new normal, you know, that's where I think this is going to be really hard for us to be healthy and whole during this process. So what I love about radical imagination, there's lots of books out there on it, but really, again, what's beautiful is that it's what could be in the world, and it's inclusive in that humility line. It really engages those who are not often part of these conversations to radically reimagine the systems and the policies and the communities in which we're living. Radical imagination is something that I think it's going to help. It's going to be good for our hearts and souls as we move, again, in this direction while we maintain our health and our humility. There's a great book called Lean Impact. And basically, the author talks about falling in love with the problem, not the solution. So often, that's that status quo slide that I put on earlier. So often, we think that, oh, if we just, vote in this election, if we just get paid leave, if we just get affordable childcare, everything will be great. Those are solutions. Those are great ways to address these different areas. But what is the thing behind all of that? What is the problem upstream that we need to address? And this is an area that I've gotten really worked up about over the last couple years, is how many of you have participated in the fall when all the local news stations come on and say it's time to donate the canned goods to address food insecurity? And we feel good, like that's me rounding up at Goodwill, right? Like I can bring this canned food here and I'm doing my part and I feel like I'm helping. But is that the problem? Is not enough canned foods in this world the problem? The problem is that our systems are broken so that people are facing food insecurity constantly. And 1 can of food or 10 cans of food are not going to fix that. We have to work upstream and recognize there are a lot of policy solutions. There are proven programs that could really use our advocacy. Like, what if we spent more time working with legislators, voting and working with our legislators to support and get the adequate funding we need for some of these programs? So instead, again, we have reasons to do the canned good, but we can't just do the Band-Aids, right? We need to work upstream, and we need to figure out, I want to radically reimagine that food insecurity isn't a thing, that housing insecurity isn't a thing. We talk so much about ACEs and adverse childhood experiences. Instead of building entire systems around it, what if we could prevent that? What if there was a world where we didn't have so much trauma and ACEs in this world? This is that radical imagination that I invite you to join, because we need to look at going beyond, again, the canned food or that moment of that donation and look at what can we do to set us up for long-term thriving and surviving and overcoming and preventing these kind of things that suck us in and overwhelm us with what do I do to address that issue or this issue? I do. I watch every fall with my kids in the morning before I get up, and there are local news stations who are just like, canned goods, canned goods, canned goods, canned goods. And it's the same time, usually that time of year, that it's an election year. And I can't help but think, what if these same newscasters were talking as much about voter registration, voter engagement, legislator, policymaker accountability than they are about canned foods? Right? Like, I can see it, and I just think, we have such low turnout in the United States. We take our democracy and our vote for granted often. It is absolutely so imperative that we start again challenging these systems and say, you know, what if while we're trying to, meet this gap right now and have these food drives, we are also recognizing the systems that we can infuse funding into and infuse our energy into to help maybe disrupt the problem altogether. Does this all seem so overwhelming to you? Like, can anybody imagine us not having food insecurity? Not having affordable childcare? Like, this is what really bogs us all down, right? And here I end with hope, and I give you this. But I think, again, my vision is that we're not about waiting till that time of year around the seasons where people get extra generous and you can get your extra supply of different non-perishable foods. But what if every night, right? Like, what if food insecurity wasn't an issue and it wasn't just about having access to canned goods, but hot, healthy meals? Now, that is the end of my presentation. Well, there's a couple of slides left, but I'm back to the wheel. Anybody move from when they got in here this morning, of where they saw themselves on the wheel to where you are right now? Good or bad? Okay, so we have some, okay, and again, none of these, I shouldn't say good or bad. All of these feelings are justified, right? You might still feel overwhelmed. But again, just like that guy back in May 18th, 1995, I'm hoping something that I've given you today will allow you to hang on to that hope, allow you to hang on to that health, allow you to hang on to that humility, because you're going to learn so much from each other today. Today is a magical day to carry this forward, and what a gift to all be here in this room together to get some of this information and then build off of that today. Now, I've named a lot of books. Here's your time for the QR code. I've named a lot of books today that I think have been pivotal in my journey as a professional. And if you want to, there's a blog post, a post on our website that has these books, and I highly recommend adding to it. There's a section where you can even add some of the books that have been paramount to your development and your evolution as a professional. So I'll let you get some of those. And again, I'm going to work with Amanda to get you my copy of my slides if you want any of these. But thank you for taking all your screenshots. And then here's just a list of some resources that I think can be incredibly valuable as we, again, learn to take our small steps to make a big difference. We estimate less than 7% of people in the state know who their state legislators are. That's by design. That's just the reality of it. But how can we work on policy and systems change if we don't know who's working for us or trying to earn our vote, right? So if you go to whorepresentsme.info, you can find out who all of your current legislators are and put them in your smartphone and start exercising that and making sure, and again, this is probably for another talk, and I hope that all of you feel that you can reach out to me after today and I can continue to help you in this journey as your advocacy doula. The My Vote, we have elections coming up this year. I don't think it's lost on us. Vote 411 is an incredible resource from the League of Women Voters. And then personally, in terms of my mental health, I love the Hello Mind app, the Calm app, and the Positive Intelligence program. So if that's anything that ends up helping and giving back to you, I just want to share some of the things that keep me waking up every morning and putting on that bra. So I thank you so very much for your time this morning. I know we have about 15 minutes before we are done with this session, but I always tell people, it's like such a heavy question, how are you, right? Like during the pandemic, it's like, how much time do you have to really know how I'm doing right now? But my sign off for the last 5 years has been, just try and keep your head and your heart above water. We're all feeling like we're drowning right now. We're feeling so overwhelmed. And the key is, whether it's a buoy, whether it's a friend, whether it's getting out of that water, but reminding ourselves that's what we got to do day in and day out. Just make sure we keep our heads and our hearts above water so that we can be here, resilient, strong, healthy, whole, for this new normal and the kind of leadership we're paving the way for. So thank you very much for listening this morning.